We got a question recently about how our solar is doing and what we do with our dogs when we're out, say at Mackinac Island for the whole day. How do we keep them cool? Is our solar setup keeping up? Is our AC, etc.? Now, the easiest part to answer is, of course, the AC. Is it keeping up? Absolutely, especially if we keep it cool from the morning, but that does require some power. So our dogs are very comfortable all day long, no worries about that, and we have no concerns at all about their safety or anything. Granted, it also helps when the weather cooperates, either by being nice and cool or by giving us lots of sun. Now the question is, how do we power our AC? So we don't have a generator. If you're new to our channel, no generator in sight. So we have 4 200-watt Call Sun bifacial monocrystalline panels on the roof. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now our roof, the way that we mounted these, we didn't put any holes in our roof. These are all adhered now with Sikaflex 252 and then a Turnabond over that just for peace of mind. It's just a little bit of something that makes me feel better. They're actually angled kind of differently. So the front one is going to be at this angle, and the one over there is going to be slightly, crooked from that. And then the back, one is sort of facing that direction and one is sort of tilted this direction. That actually gives us pretty good sun. Now it's not optimal, we're not going to peak higher, but as the sun moves across the sky, it seems like we get a little bit more sun this way, a little bit longer through the day. So a lower peak, although we can, in optimal conditions, especially a little bit closer to the equator, we have gotten way more than 800 watts out of this system, and I'll show you how. But generally right about now, we'll probably max out around 720, about noon, 1 o'clock, we'll get about 720 to 760, somewhere in there, just from this photovoltaic array. But then you might have noticed this guy, and we have 4 200, they're all the same panels. That was very intentional. So 4 on the roof and 2 on the sides. And so they're all the same 200-watt units. They're bifacial. And what does that mean? Well, I'll show you, but it essentially means that if there is a light to be bounced, it can capture it on the other side. And I'll show you how much it can capture because it's surprising. And it does work, which is why we can exceed 800 watts on our roof, even with a smaller clearance. It's kind of impressive. Now this array definitely puts out some serious power. It does give us, I want to say maybe 20% more than our roof. In optimal conditions, of course, we'll get even more than that. But of course, as you can tell right now, the sun is overhead. These 2 side panels aren't doing a whole lot of anything. If this guy's capturing a full 200 watts, obviously that side's not going to get anything, but it also works vice versa. So to get the 200 watts is definitely better than to get 0. Why does that work? Typically, that wouldn't work, right? Typically, if this guy is partially shaded, that series gets nothing. But because these panels have bypass diodes in them, if this guy gets nothing, it doesn't matter. It's still going to pass through the power that it can get, which is really nice. Now, it may very well bring down the efficiency. We've tried to do tests with or without them. It's kind of tough to test that, but I'd rather have them than not have them. And we're very happy with how it's working. And generally speaking, we can keep that AC running as long as we have sun. Now, Call Sun actually sent over an extra panel here, which will be nice because you can tell none of these are actually positioned optimally, but again, we figure any way that we're facing, we're gonna get some sort of power. So I figure that's probably the most vulnerable, this slanted one there, that's probably the most vulnerable to rock chips or something like that. We haven't had an issue, knock on wood. And then the second most vulnerable are going to be these side panels. So again, we haven't had any issues and things have flexed and all that, and it's just not been a bother. But since they sent this over, this will act great as a spare. We have other projects that we can use this for in the future, but let me show you this guy. So this is really easy to show, and I'll show you the power. So I've disconnected the roof. Obviously our truck is not connected right now. So this is the only unit that's actually plugged into the side. So this is a 16 bus bar array here. So 16 bars can go ahead and transfer that power over to these back connectors. And of course you got a negative and a positive. It's the same type of panel, but because they're bifacial, you have the front side and the back side that they can gather that light. And I love these. Now, when we picked these up for about $159 on Amazon. They were fantastic. We had a little coupon or something like that, and I really would recommend it. Now, this guy is a 200-watt panel, but again, bifacial. It's going to give you a lot more power than 200 in optimal conditions. But the open circuit voltage on this guy is 27.31 volts. The short circuit current is 8.91 amps. So this does have a maximum system voltage of 1,000 volts. It's rated for 200 watts. But I will show you why that's not the full story. Now here in our Victron setup, we have a trailer roof array, so that's one, it's a 150, 100 charge controller, and then the truck solar rack array. So I'm gonna click the trailer roof array, and we can look at some of the historic data, like yesterday. Now yesterday wasn't the sunniest of days, but it was, it was pretty good. Now for example, we hit a photovoltaic max of 834 watts out of an 800 watt standard test condition system, right? So that should tell you something. And then you can see 700s, we hit a 500s, 804, 808. So as we go back here, the peak is pretty, and you can actually see where we either didn't need, oh, this is a good one, but you can actually see where either we didn't need more power because we were already full, or where the weather was not very favorable. Now, actually 23 days ago, 1,096 watts. I mean, that's very impressive. 1,096 out of 800 watts. That's like adding an extra panel. That's pretty dang good. It's actually like adding more than one panel. Let's take a look at this guy right now. So we're kind of playing peekaboo with the clouds here. Our charge controller is gonna try to track this, but we're getting 136, 157, 172, 171, 182, 185, 181. And I have no doubt, obviously, you can see our historic data, which does very much reflect real world conditions, right? You can see that, and we can play around with the angle quite a bit here, but we're still getting very respectable numbers, especially considering a lot of panels, it's really hard to get them to their maximum. But you can see even in these very suboptimal conditions, maybe we'll drop it down a little lower. Yeah, we go down there, let's lift up a little bit, maybe angle 186, but we're sitting right around, I mean, within 20 watts of the maximum for this guy. And this is not reflecting almost anything because right underneath we have a shadow. So 187 there. But I want to show you something really cool. We're going to flip this guy all the way upside down, and you will see that, of course, the front side is not illuminated at all. I mean, it's hitting on a cardboard box. I'm just going to take this cabling and just sort of get it off most of the cells. But you can see, I mean, we still have shading on this entire row, right? If I'm a little bit more specific with this, there we go. So we still have all of these cells, and they're of course shaded. But what are we getting right now? I mean, again, not optimal, right? We are getting 118 watts right now. That's incredible. Like that's crazy. Again, 159 bucks for this guy. That's pretty dang good. They also have a warranty, and the customer service had been really receptive when we had a unit that was damaged during shipping. I have no doubt that it was sent out just fine. It was damaged during shipping. These things happen. So we're at 121, 122. And by the way, I'd almost say that the bottom side of this is prettier than the top side. I just like the different, the different colors here. So 126, 130, 132. Again, we have cells that are covered. This is the back side of a solar panel. This is kind of nuts, right? 133, 134, 135. However, you can also play around with this and using stands and equipment that we don't have here. It's just not reasonable for us to even attempt this because everything around us is pretty dark. But you can reflect light onto there. Now you can use mirrors if you want to. There's only so much that you're gonna get on that, and some of these things are actually gonna reflect heat as well. So that's I kind of throw caution at that, but you do what you want to. What I would do is take, for example, some of this foam here, and I'm probably not going to reflect almost any of this on, but you can use some of this white surface right underneath your panel, and I'm not seeing a difference with this, but it kind of makes sense. But between the two of these, we might be able to reflect even more light here, so maybe not. I did not go to plan, so I'm not seeing, yeah, 134, 137, 138, 139, 140. Yeah, I mean, that might be giving us a little bit here, 141, 142. And right now, again, we're not optimally angled or anything like that, but this is kind of one of the conditions you might find on the roof of an RV. Now these are, I mean, solar is just dropped in price. It's amazing. And to have this level of technology, things with bypass diodes, 16 bus bars, obviously very durable, which is kind of a big deal for me, but also bifacial. You get so much more potential out of way less. And they're not huge. I mean, I think they don't even weigh, didn't weigh 25 pounds, but I'd say that's pretty impressive. So if this is a realistic, like you're not in perfect conditions anyhow, what happens if you shade a quarter or a half of the panel? 165, 167 watts, and I get some shade on it. We're still getting 104, 103, 102 watts. Now we're shading up to this center bar, right? But still 104. So essentially, if you get shade on this corner and that corner of the panel, you're essentially gonna cut the panels in half, but you are still getting power, which is really cool. Now, if we shade a quarter of this, we're still getting about half the effective capacity here. And what about just, and the same thing I would assume here. So yeah, 110, 108, 107, okay. And what about just this half? Ah, now that's interesting. And this is a condition that like you're not going to be able to control very well if you're on an RV, but in a house you might be able to control better. If we limit sunlight on this side and this half of the panel this way, we are getting 30 watts. And if we, of course, if we limit all of it, let's see, 19, 23, 17, I can't believe it's getting anything. And what if we go diagonal, just for giggles? 32 watts. I can't believe that's getting anything. A lot of these panels, of course, you would get nothing. You would get, just, I mean, it would be zero. It would be completely zeroed out. So for it to be able to still get 20, 30 watts, that's really something. And then, of course, we got sun again, 170 watts. In Las Vegas, under those conditions where we're getting 1,000 watts, the fascinating thing about this, these panels are scorching hot. We're looking at surface temperatures, if you were to measure the ground, of 130, 140 degrees. Those guys are probably 150 plus. These are black panels, probably could have gone with silver. We just like the look of black. It really blends in with the truck. However, they're still producing very, very well. And if you wanted an optimal condition, you would have really good sun, but in the winter in cooler weather, where I guarantee these will, I mean, even if they're mounted the way that we only have like a small gap, we don't want a huge air gap on our roof, I would be willing to bet we'd probably hit 300 watts out of each panel. Granted, the sun's gonna be lower in the sky, but if we were, you know, in cooler weather, closer to the equator, I think we'd be in pretty good shape. I don't know that there's a whole lot more we can say about these. Thank you to Colt for sending this out as a, you know, a backup. This will be really nice if we have an issue, right? Because when they're connected in series, if one goes out, theoretically they both go out. We would want to disconnect that panel from our array. But in this case, I don't think we're going to have much of an issue at all. They have shown to be very sturdy, twisting and wind, no problems there. The truck is still performing exactly as I'd expected. Trailer as well. They're easy to install. We have some videos on that, on how we've done this. But when it comes to, if you want a rigid panel, which in my opinion are significantly more reliable and longer lasting, as we've had experiences with, than the flexible panels, although maybe not as convenient, maybe, I mean, but you can see they're really not bad. I would say this is the one to get. Renogy also has a similar option, I believe it is, but the cost was higher. These are N-type panels. They're both the same technology. I don't see why you would go with that over this, especially for 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks more, especially depending on you know, sales and things like that. You can get these almost 100 bucks less. So these are absolutely fantastic. Now, a word of caution though, if you are considering a flexible panel, there are some really, really good durable panels out there. Those panels, and they're very flexible, right? You can roll them up and all that good stuff. But what you're gonna find with any of those is that they still need the air underneath. So put them on some sort of substrate that's not just going to bake that panel. What we've had in the past when we had those flexible panels, when we stuck them down, one of them did, it caught fire just a little bit because unfortunately we strapped them to our Airstream roof. And so as a matter of fact, you see this guy right up here, that is a very thin panel. They just put a frame around it. I believe that's actually one of the flexible panels similar to what we had. But even those guys have learned that you need to mount them like a rigid panel to make sure you get that air underneath. Well, you'll find that they have a really high failure rate, a warranty rate. And if you're out of warranty and that happens, for example, yeah, it's a pricey lesson to learn, I'll tell you. So, long story short, get one of these. I'll leave a link below in the pinned comment, but yeah, otherwise, hopefully you learned something, had a little fun, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.